Vanakkam. Today I am going to read from this book, Reconciliation Seen by the Margins, which is published by the People's Association for People for Peace and Development. And the article I wrote in this book is called The Plight of Female Ex-Combatants in Post-War Sri Lanka by Dr. Maureen Ernest. There are many female ex-combatants in our society. Some of them have become disabled during the war. Some are widows because they have lost their husbands during the war. Some remain single because no one wants to marry them, and some are being discriminated because they are ex-combatants. These female combatants once carried the guns and operated heavy machinery. They had many responsibilities and led people to freedom. They were fully involved in administrative tasks. They were physically in good shape. They believed in the power within them. They followed the orders and systems in daily life. They joined the LTTE for different reasons. Some joined them because they wanted to be involved in bringing the freedom to the Tamils. Some because they were brainwashed by the LTTE. Some were forced by the LTTE to join the struggle. Some joined because of poverty or abuse in their own homes, while some volunteered to take the place of a brother who was forcibly conscripted by the LTTE. They all have their own stories as to why and how they ended up as combatants. One says, I told the LTTE that my brother is already in the LTTE, but they didn't listen to me. They took me by force in a van. I was crying. My parents heard I was taken and ran to the camp. The LTTE said we did not take any girls today. I was already in the camp. They kept me in a closed room. I kept crying continuously, saying, I want to go home. I want to go home. Another said, my daughter was 14 when she joined LTTE. My husband died and we had no income, no food. Other neighbors encouraged the children to join LTTE. She went with a neighbor. I was in the paddy field. I came back and searched everywhere, and then some told me that she went with LTTE. Another said, I went to school to grade 5. I dropped out because my father and mother were dead. No one cared for me. I lived with my aunt after my parents died. I cooked for her family. I had frustrations in my life, so I was willing to join LTTE. I wanted to live in this world without anyone's help. When I joined the LTTE, I went to the political office and told the LTTE I wanted to join. They agreed. I told them I was 16, but they didn't care. Another girl mentioned that she joined the LTTE because of her best friend who was going to join. She said she herself knew nothing about LTTE when she joined, but her friend who came from an abusive home had been convinced that the LTTE was the only option for a better life. For some female fighters, violence was the means of survival, a means of communicating resistance and integrity of a struggle for self-determination to the Sri Lankan army. One says, when we see our sisters and mothers raped by the Sri Lankan army, when we see our brothers taken away, beaten and killed, when we watch our homes burned up in flames in the aftermath of aerial bombardment, what are we to do? Where do we go to hide, to live? I decided that I was not going to let that happen to me. I was not going to be raped and killed in the hands of the Sri Lankan army. I saw the courage of the other girls who were joining the movement and decided that this was only way to survive. At one time, the former militants had power over their people. They kept them under their control. They exercised authority and kept Tamils under a well-organized administrative structure. Female combatants were equal to male combatants. They performed some same role as a male counterpart, and they were trained like the males to conduct various attacks such as underwater attacks, suicide attacks, guerrilla attacks, and so on. During the LTTE rule, Tamil culture came alive. Tamils used to love South Indian music and cinema, but the LTTE developed indigenous Tamil songs, drama, movies, and dances. They identified the talents of the individuals and gave the opportunity to develop themselves. The LTT had their own radio station, and many female ex-combatants displayed their talents through the radio station and street performance. The LTT trained their soldiers not only to fight but also provided training in farming, teaching, and leadership. Many former female ex-combatants have skills and talents and good leadership qualities. All of them have great potential within them. However, the society still looks at them as hopeless. They are blamed for the 30 years of the war. One time they were praised as heroines. Today they are not counted as normal civilians. It is said that most of the female ex-combatants have been sexually abused at rehabilitation centers by the military. They are still under the surveillance of the military. So whenever they are called to military camp, people assume they are called for sexual exploitation. Consequently, some female ex-combatants are not respected as they are frequently visited by the military personnel for further investigation. During the rehabilitation, they got the opportunity to learn a trade. But unfortunately, some of them are not born with such skills. And there is no opportunity for them to use their own skills. Some do not have financial support to continue the trade they learned. They are also afraid to apply for government jobs as they are often rejected because of the stigma of the past. The society is afraid to welcome them and support them because of the possibility of getting involved in CID investigations. Most of the female ex-combatants face CID inquiries up to this day. They live in fear. They carry the wounds of losing the battle. They face the power imbalance. They are now in different social structure. They are afraid to trust others. Some ex-combatants were taken by the military for inquiries and have got disappeared. Singles have difficulty in getting married as men are reluctant to marry female ex-combatant. Widows have difficulty in explaining their stories or afraid to identify their ex-combatant husband when seeking support from the government. Some disabled people have not received any assistance. Their struggle continues. Subodhini Sivalingam, 32-year-old, who committed suicide in Polikandi, Jaffna, has sacrificed 15 years of her life to the freedom struggle. She was partly paralyzed after getting injured in a combat operation in 1999. She was serving in the medical service of the LTTE during the Vietnam War. Her suicide has been attributed to poverty, but informed circles tell a different story. She had been continuously harassed and interrogated, sexually abused and threatened with death by Sri Lankan military. I feel like fighting again. If I get a gun, I will kill a particular lot before losing my life, swore another woman fighter who survived a suicide attempt after sexual assault and harassment in the Sri Lankan military camp. I don't like to live here. I may be in peace if I go elsewhere. Otherwise, there is no option other than committing suicide with my entire family, says a tearful ex-LTTE female cadre. She has become a wreck by a continued sexual abuse in the name of summons and interrogation by Sri Lankan military. The military spokesman, Ruwan Venigasuriya, told IRIN that 125 people found guilty in civil courts of perpetrating sexual violence in the north of Sri Lanka between January 2000 and May 2009. 7 were security forces personnel. After fighting ended from May 2009 to 2012, out of 307 people found guilty in civil courts of committing crimes of sexual violence, 10 were soldiers, based on a military assessment. He added, "We deny in the strongest term that there is prevailing culture of silence and impunity for sexual violence crimes," noting that the government has taken legal action and that convicted soldiers are referred to the military tribunal for court martial. There are some organizations working with female disabled ex-combatants. Some of the female ex-combatants have written books on their experience. However, there is still much to be done. Today, in post-war Sri Lanka, militarization reaches extreme levels. Many Tamil women face a desperate lack of security and continue to live in fear of violence from the state of Sri Lanka. Thank you.